Hey guys, this is Heretic, and in this video we'll go over the reasons why battles are lost, and more importantly, why troops are lost. Included in the video, we'll take a look at statistics and which ones matter to a battle, as well as troop tiers and march formations. But first, let's talk about the differences between an attack and defense and how troop losses work. So let's start off with tip number 1. When you attack someone in a non-SOS attack like this one, every troop lost on the attack here on the left, every one of those troops, these 77,588, are gone. They're dead. So it's every troop that's lost in the battle except for the percentage of troops covered by wounded conversion. You can train this skill in the college, and let me show you real quick. If you go over to your college, go to research, go to development, and if you scroll down here, you'll see wounded conversion, there's 5%. Scroll down further, and you can get up to 10% right here in the college. And those troops that would have died here in this battle report, which would have been 81,795. Of those, 4,207 were protected by that wounded conversion, and they're sent to the hospital. But the 77,588 are gone. So be sure you train up your wounded conversion as high as you possibly can, and over time, when you're attacking, it will reduce the total number of true losses that you take. On defense, it's very, very different here. So if you look here at this battle report, in this battle, they lost a total of 280,000 troops if you add in the losses with the wounded. But because the hospital capacity was high enough to take, and this is an extremely high hospital capacity, especially for the level that we are right now, those troops up to that hospital capacity will just become wounded, and you can easily heal them in the hospital. Then above that, you have your losses, your 37,207. But wait, those aren't really lost. A large percentage of those will go to the sanctuary. And the sanctuary is here in your hospital if you go over to the sanctuary. So depending on the level of your hospital, you can hold a certain number of troops. And it's about 90% of the troops on defense that would have died. So in that report that said losses, about 90% of those are going to end up here in this sanctuary. And in this sanctuary, you'll have quests that you can do, and you'll generate this holy water, which will allow you to bring those troops back to life. It's actually easier because it doesn't cost you any resources at all to bring back troops that are in the sanctuary than in the hospital itself. If you have a lot of speed ups, healing here is easy and they're done, right? And you have them. Whereas in the sanctuary, you're going to have to do quests. And if you have a ton of troops in there, like if I had the full 163,000 troop capacity that my sanctuary would hold, then it would take me a while to get those all healed. It would take maybe a week to get them all healed. It wouldn't cost me anything other than time. So over your hospital cap, up to this number of troops. So if I have, and I can show you mine real quick. So if I look at my hospital, and the best way to do this is somewhere else actually, but if I add 115 and 26, that is 141,000. So 141,000 of my troops will go directly to the hospital. Then about 90% of the troops over that, up to 163,000. So I could hold, let's say 175,000 plus here, another 141. That's, over 300,000 troops would be relatively safe for me to have. Now, but to be safe, and tip number 2 here, when you're looking at these battle reports, people are going to put them all over World Chat, and they're going to say, oh my God, you lost 37,000 troops. You're terrible when you're on defense. And you know that they don't know what they're talking about because those troops aren't really lost, right? You're going to get, a big giant chunk of those, over 30,000 of those, you're going to get those back. So you're not losing much at all here, and they're losing a lot. And on the attack, they're losing them. They're gone. They're gone. They're going to have to rebuild them from scratch. You have 37,000 troops. It's not a big deal. But if you want to keep the chatter down, if you want to keep people from calling you out on World Chat, the thing to do would be to go here to Alliance, go over to Alliance Buildings, go to Alliance Hall, Alliance Fort. If I can click it, reinforce it. And this is the way that I do it. Uncheck these guys right here. I set this down to 0%. And then I go down to the very bottom and I just start working my way up until I get to the point where I know that here, if I send these 39,571, I will be under the cap, or close enough to the cap where I really don't have to worry about losing troops. Here, I'm going to send 44,000 away. That for sure puts me under my hospital cap. To find out real quick here, since I sent those away, I can go over here to my depot, go to Marching Army, look in My Wounded. My Wounded is 141. Now, I have 175, so I didn't really calculate that very well. So what I would do now is I would go ahead and send out another 30,000 or so troops. And that way, if I did get hit by 2 million troops tonight, if someone, if 50 people all hit me at once, I'm not going to really lose anything at all. On the battle report, it's going to say a couple hundred losses. Everything else is just going to go to the hospital. And they're going to lose a lot, right? And that's the name of the game there. You can do that. You can send them to the Alliance Fortress. You can send them to a friend, like look in your map, talk to people. The best thing you can do is actually talk to people in your alliance. And this guy right here, Nemesis, I could say, hey, Nemesis, how long is your shield on? Usually we'll have a chat in here and people will say, they'll post their coordinates, they'll post the time, and they'll post the length of the shield that they have going. And they'll use the UTC time, which you get here, server time UTC. So they'll say, 2200, 8 hours. So if I know it's 2300, if I put my troops, if I reinforce him with the other 30,000 here, I know that they're safe for 7 hours. That's the way to do it. The other thing you can do, obviously, is just put a shield on yourself. But if you don't want to spend gems on shields and you don't have any, then, you have other options here. And this works until you get so many troops that it becomes more difficult. So then you're going to have to do more coordination to protect your troops. You're going to have to send a full march over to the Alliance Fortress, full marches to reinforce other people while you're away. When you do that, go ahead and buff your march size there, and you can send more out at a time, and that'll kind of help you get rid of, more of your troops so you don't lose as many if you do get hit. The one thing you have to do here that I recommend highly is pay attention and don't, log off for a ton of time without knowing that your troops are protected. All right, so back to attacking. Attacking another castle is always a dangerous gamble. Whether you win or lose comes down to a few small things. It's going to come down to the number of troops you have, the troop tiers, troop statistics, and the march formation that you're using, the type and the number of troops that you're using in that attack. All right, so tip number 3 here. As a general rule, to defeat someone, the attackers need to have at least nearly the same statistics and overwhelming number of troops or troop tiers that are much higher than the people you are attacking to inflict enough true damage to the defense that you take limited losses. You're still going to take some. In almost any battle, no matter how big you are, you're going to take some. But there are things that you can do to reduce the number of those losses. For example, in a large speed attack or a timed attack, the losses you take will be determined by your statistics. So if you want to look at your stats, you can go here, check details, and you can see your stats. Now, this is a partial view of your stats. This does not include your totems, for example. So, if you have powerful totems, the stats that are associated with those totems don't really appear here in your details. And then also, it'll depend on the number of frontline troops you sent and their tiers compared to your friends. So, for example, and this could even be in a solo attack. But let's say you're in a big timed attack or a big speed attack that you're doing on someone, and everybody's sending out their marches, and everyone else has tier 8 infantry that they're sending, and you're sending tier 4. Your troops, your tier 4 infantry are going to take a lot more losses relative to your friends who are using tier 8 because they have lower health and lower defense. So they're going to die a lot quicker. In general, in large attacks, you want a battle leader that sets up which tiers to use and the percentages of front lines that everyone will actually send out. I've seen many attacks where you're advised by the battle leader that everybody should only send even tiered troops. They should only send 25% of those troops should be frontline, and they need to all be tier 8 and above, or something like this. In this case, you still could lose more troops than your friends depending on your statistics and the tier level sent. So if they say tier 8 plus, you send tier 8 and everybody else sends tier 10 and tier 12, then you're going to lose more, right? All right, so tip number 4, in solo attacks, keeping the lower tier death frequency in mind that we just discussed, go ahead and send some low tier frontline in your marches, and they're going to serve as a meat shield for your attacks. This is important. You're going to lose some of those. You're going to lose a lot of those possibly, but that's okay, because if, let's say for example, you're sending out tier 12 cav, go ahead and send some tier 2 cav in there. You lose the tier 2, they're super easy to replace. It's almost like sending them to the hospital because it's so easy to rebuild tier 2. You could probably replace all of those in a single night, and it won't cost you very many resources. You'll win that battle, and you won't really lose anything in the end. Again, attacking is serious business, even when you're simply clearing farms. A very common tactic that people will take is, so I'm here clearing my TJE farms, right? And let's say this alliance I leave open, right? Everyone in your alliance is going to say, oh my God, open your farm alliances. Oh my God, open your farm alliances. So you're gonna open them when you're offline. That's the thing to do, so that when your enemy is attacking those farms, people from your alliance could join that farm and reinforce. But the same thing can happen to you if whenever you go in to clear your farms, if you don't close that farm alliance, your enemy can leave their alliance, join that farm, and reinforce that castle that you're attacking. Then you end up losing all your troops. It's happened many times already on 1567. It's a terrible thing. Learn, don't do that. In the beginning of a realm, Don't worry so much about losing some troops. It's not a big deal. They're low-level troops anyway. You're going to replace them easily over time. Learn from those battles, though, so that you're able to adapt and do better when it does matter. So tip number 5, always remember to close alliances before you clean your farms to keep this from happening. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into statistics a little bit. The most important statistics that your troops have, and let's go ahead and look here in the stats, the most important statistics that you have are not these right here that everyone focuses on, which are like your attack and your HP, your defense. Those are important, but they're not the most important ones. The most important ones here are further down, and they're what you call the damage modifying stats. The most important of which are the damage reduction stats. And so these are really critical. So here you go. It's damage taken is reduced in Elite Wars. Damage reduces damage taken by angels. Damage taken reduced when attacking. Damage taken reduced when defending. Damage taken from infantry. Your front line is not going to do a lot. But damage taken by cav, some people get some really high cav attack and they can really eat up your front line with them. Reduces the damage taken from archers, really important. And tip number 6, especially early on, this damage reduces damage taken by mages is really important because a lot of people, if not the vast majority of people, will build infantry mages in the beginning. So reducing that damage coming in will allow your front line to survive longer so that your back line can beat them. So also the damage increase is really important. And so of these you have, your archer damage, your mage damage, troop damage means all troops. Damage is always the best. And you have damage increased when attacking, damage against angels, etc. You have all of these. And tip number 7 here, the damage increase on attack is really important, especially early in the game. It's an easy one whenever you're doing any attacks, especially when you get when the first people get the SOS. If they have this, it's a big deal, right? They have really high damage increase when attacking. It's really going to help them out. But it's also going to help you out when you're in those big attacks with your friends. You're going to end up killing a lot more of the enemy than other people will. So those are really important. So now that we talked about the damage modifying statistics, the other important statistics, obviously, that we went over in the beginning that we just kind of glossed over here, and I'm going to tell you in the order of importance here. You have your hit points for your front line, your health points. So this would be infantry HP, cav HP, if you're using cav. Those are super important. Also, the associated defense. So the infantry defense and the cav defense are important. After that would be the attack of whatever your backline is going to be. This is in the beginning of the game because you're not going to be using as many angels. Rarely you're going to be using angels at the beginning. I actually would suggest gathering the guardian power every day, saving it, and then when you build up into your 30s and you can get those T10, T11 angels, start building them out then. I wouldn't really build out a lot of angels in the beginning. You're going to end up losing them and it's a big waste. So tip number 8 here. When you're looking at your statistics, when you're looking at your health and your defense and your attack, you need, a lot of people ask, like, what should I focus on? You need some balance. So let's say you have 400 infantry health points, HP. And you have, you're using archers and your archer attack is 22. You're probably still going to lose the majority of your battles because although your infantry are going to last a long time, your archers, your backline's going to do so little damage to your enemy. that they're going to still be able to chew through that infantry and get and win the battle in the end. So you need to have some balance. It works the same, on the other side, it works the same way. So if you had 22 infantry health and you had 400 attack, your front line's going to just melt away, and people are going to get to that back line. You might do a lot of damage, but in the end, they're going to eat through your front line so fast that they're going to go straight to your back line and end the battle. So you don't want that. So, all right, so on to troop tiers. So let's take a look at this report. First, what I'm going to look at is kind of army details here. They got an attack by someone with tier 10 infantry, archers, and mages here. And the other person on the attack had some cav and archers, okay? And they had odd and even. So they had odd and even there, and they had even with the other person. The defenders have tier 10 and 8. It looks like, some 9s, so a little bit of mix here. All right, and just a big mix of troops. So let's look at the actual replay here. I've been to myself, just me lately. I don't need a lot. I've been to myself, just me lately. I don't need a lot. No, just me and all right, so on to troop tiers. Let's look at the barracks and let's just go in. And when it comes to troop tiers, every type of troop has health, attack, defense, attack range, movement speed, and load. The most important stats are the health, attack, defense, and range. Those are the most important. So as you move up tiers, you can see here HP 315 at tier 3. Go to tier 4, it's 467. Go to tier 5, it's 528. It goes up pretty fast, and then you get up into the 9 and the 10, and it's many times better. One tier 10 infantry is several times stronger than a tier 4, right? Or tier 3. Several times stronger. It's much, much, much stronger in comparison. In addition to that, to the base stats of those troops improving as you go up the tier list, you also have skills that are associated with even and odd tiers. So, for example, tier 10, that's even. Even tiered infantry have mage resistance, which reduces the damage from mages by 25%. That's every even tiered infantry. While odd tier have blockade, which raises HP when you're defending. So your odd tiered infantry do much better on defense, while your even tiered infantry are very useful in attacks because they'll reduce that mage attack from your enemy. They'll be able to absorb more damage on attack. That's one reason why a lot of people like to use even tiers when they're actually on attacks. Each one of these different types of troops have different skills associated with the even and odd tiered troops. Okay? So in addition to that, when you look at battles, the formation of the troops in the battle are really important. So tip number 9, it is extremely important to reduce deaths, not to be stuck in a large multiplayer attack with the wrong tier or type of troop. If you send 20,000 tier 9 infantry and everyone else sends even tiers, more than likely your infantry will take more losses than your friends do. And it could be disastrous if then the troops that are attacking your odd tier infantry make it through that front line and they're able to attack the back line. That's why it's really important to know what your team is sending in the attack so that it can be coordinated and your losses can be minimized. This also goes for solo attacks. If you send multiple tiered levels of frontline, you don't want to leave one extremely weak unless you absolutely know what your opponent is using, so that the way they line up here in these attacks comes out to be where you're able to withstand on that row their frontline attack. So you're able to still keep them away from your back line, because in all of these battles, the way to win is to make it through the opponent's front line and into their back. All right, so with that, look for my other videos on troop types, hiding troops, and many of the other topics that we discussed in this video, and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, take care.